All right, let's go ahead and get started today. So 1 week from today at 10 o'clock is the final exam. So you definitely want to be preparing for that. Study guide is posted on Blackboard. If you have any questions, please get in contact with me about them. I'll be here through the week, and I'll be checking my email. And so I'll have office hours if you want to come by. Anything I can do to help you as you prepare for the final. Remember, there are parts of the final that are comprehensive, and then there are some parts that include information just from the third, after the third test on. The material that you will need to know for the comprehensive questions is that information listed on the study guide. And so if it's not on the study guide, you will not need to know it. With respect to the study guide and the terms on the study guide, as before, I'm looking for a general knowledge type of question. I'm not going to try and trick anybody, and if you come to me and say, well, this question, the list wasn't on the it wasn't on the study guide. I'm not going to say, well, it tangentially connects to this other point, which tangentially connects to this other point, which is connected to this term that was on the list, and so you should have known that. Right? I'm not looking to try and fool you. Right? So general knowledge about those terms is what I'm looking for. And I'll try to break that down a little bit more here in a minute. But I will kind of give you a heads up. There will be some types of questions on the exam, and I do address this in the study guide, that have not appeared before. These are essentially, they're still multiple choice, but they are analogical reasoning questions, meant to think about comparing religious traditions. You've probably seen questions like this on the ATT or the SAT or some other standardized test like that. And so the idea is you're reasoning from an analogy. So an example, just a general example here, would be hot is to cold as hard is to rock. So I got rock and I got soft. Which is it? Why is it soft? All right, so hot compares to cold in that they're opposites, and so hard compares to its opposite, soft. Right? So there'll be questions like that. So for example, you might get a question like this. Right? One says cannot. But what? Everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
Why? Why is it not? Because it's not any of the other ones. All right. Right? So it probably won't be specifically this one, since not is not one of the choices or one of the terms. But the comparison here, of course, is between the religion and the holy text. And so thinking about, all right, what is the religious text of Judaism or Confucianism, etc. How about this one? Everybody agree with that? Buddhism? Why is it Buddhism?
Well, Confucianism was founded by Confucius. Is referred to as Buddha, so it would be Buddhism.
All right. So those connections, thinking about how do these things compare. So there will be those types of questions. Again, it's not going to be obscure types of reasoning, right? And so I'm not going to try and connect two things very obscurely to say kind of, oh, well, they both happen to be prayers of repentance in these separate, no, it's going to be, founders to their religions, text to their religions, things like that. Maybe a specific holiday, right? But something that would be on the study guide. So that's the type of question we haven't had before. So there'll be a few of those, not many, but a few of those. So I just want to give you a heads up about them. Let's talk about some things that you should be aware of, pay attention to, what you need to know for each of these. So in thinking about, looking at the list, there are several religions and types of religions. What I want you to know about these types of terms is, what are the main points about a religion? What are some of the distinctives about that religion? What are some of the things that make conservative Judaism different than Hasidic or Reform Judaism? And so what is it that makes that particular form of a religion? Or what are the key points about the difference between Confucianism and Daoism, for example? What are some of the main principles? What is it that they put forward as the way to live life? What are some of the things that they consider to be important? So you might see a question like this, either a multiple choice question or a short answer fill in the blank question. This type of Judaism attempts to preserve traditional practices like food laws and dress. They often have services in Hebrew, do not drive cars on the Sabbath, and wear special clothing during prayer. They believe that traditional teachings and practices are closer to what God intended and avoid modernization. What type of Judaism would that be? Orthodox. All right. So knowing, all right, what's different about Orthodox compared to Reformed compared to Judaism? That's conservative Judaism. Again, only those ones on the study guide. So, for example, on the Reconstructionism isn't on the study guide, and so you don't need to know Reconstructionist Judaism. It might show up as an option under a multiple choice question. If it shows up as an pay attention to this, please. If it shows up as an option on a multiple choice question, it is not the correct answer. All right. So if Reconstructionism or some other type of Judaism shows up as an answer on a multiple choice question, it is not the right answer. And so that means that you at least can eliminate that. And so only those that are listed on the study guide. What questions do you have about religions, the different types, or the different groups within religions, as far as what you would need to know? As you're working on the study guide, you think of something like, do I need to know this about Reform Judaism? Feel free to shoot me an email or come by my office and say, do I need to know these things? All right. Let's move on to talking about the different texts. Several of the terms in the different in the study guide include a variety of texts: the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Quran, the Analects, the Daoists, the Upanishads, the Vedas, etc. What is it I want you to know about these texts? Well, you should have a general idea about what they're about. And so knowing, what the Vedas are, right? That they're hymns to God, that they are made up of 4 collections. You should know, as we've already pointed out, what religion a text pertains to. Right? So you might have one of those questions where you might have to realize, okay, the Quran is the text of Islam, or the Daoists is connected with Taoism. Any sort of principles or values that are encouraged, things that we specifically emphasized in class. If we did not emphasize them in class, and you find it on a Google search, you're probably not going to see it on the exam. All right? But there are some things that we emphasize in class that I do want you to know. So, for example, you should know that for example, which Hindu text is more of a philosophical text? So, more philosophical. Out of the Hindu text, we have the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita. Which of those is more philosophical? The Upanishads. All right. So, having a general idea about that. Knowing the general content, as we've talked about in class. Again, only those texts that are on the study guide. There have been other texts in the other study guides. You do not need to know them. So, for example, the Ramayana. You don't need to know the Ramayana for this class, for this exam. But you should have a general idea of the storyline of the Bhagavad Gita. What's the Bhagavad Gita about? Okay, it's this conversation between this warrior and his chariot driver, who's actually the god Krishna. It's about the importance of fulfilling dharma. It's about the importance of devoting oneself to a deity. Just a general overview. So, for example, you might see a question like this one. What's the answer? What text is this talking about? I just explained it the exact same way that showed up on the screen, all right? So pay attention to those kind of things. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm going to ask. Again, it might show up in a multiple choice question. It might be a fill in the blank type of question. Probably something with the Bhagavad Gita, because it is such a difficult one to spell and remember how to spell. That would probably show up in a multiple choice question. But that's the kind of information that I would want you to know about these different texts. Questions about anything related to the text. So, for example, you might be asked, well, no, I'll hold that up. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, text, we talked about the division. Let's talk about the different practices. There are some specific holidays, practices, etc. listed on the study guides. Some of them simply say those discussed in lecture. So you might need to go back to the PowerPoints, for example, in Hinduism, and look through those last couple PowerPoints and say, okay, which are the practices we talked about in lecture? Things like pilgrimages, the certain festivals that we talked about. You should know what practice a religion belongs, or what religion a practice belongs to. And so if I ask you a question that asks you what religion Yom Kippur belongs to, what religion does it belong to? Judaism. And so there'll be questions like that. Maybe not as blatant as that, but there'll be something along those lines where it's asking you to identify the religion. So again, some of them are specifically listed. Some of them you might need to go back to the PowerPoints or your notes to figure out what's going on, which ones to look at. Also, if we emphasized in class what the practice was meant to do, there might be a question about that. I'll show you an example of that here in a little bit. Any questions about what you need to know for practices or rituals? All right, so a lot of those things will serve as the foundation where I'm drawing out questions for the content, the multiple choice, the short answer or fill in the blank text section. And then the final part is the essay question. This essay question listed on the study guide. So you have this. This is the only question, essay-wise, that will appear on the study guide, exactly like this. So by all means, if you want to run something by me, now you can't write it in advance and just copy it over, but if you want to run it by me and work from something, by all means, but when it comes time of the test, you actually have to write it out. Looking at this essay, there's a couple of things that I want to emphasize, because this is where the grade will be made up of. And so if you miss some of these parts, as with other essays, this is where you'll end up losing points. So the first one is to define religion. Right? So you might have to draw back from those notes and PowerPoints, etc., way back in the back of the semester, way back in the beginning of the semester, I should say. But remember, as we've talked about before, it should be comprehensive enough that it covers multiple traditions. And so it shouldn't just be something like religion is about devotion to a deity. Now, you might include that in your definition, but recognize that we've talked about ones that don't emphasize that. Identify 5 specific components of religion. So the first section, talk about your definition of religion, 5 specific components. And so again, pulling out those notes, going back through Quran or the PowerPoint. So things like ritual, scripture, myth, some of those other things. So specifically listing 5. If come the day of the test you can only remember 4, put 4 down. That's fine. Right? You might lose a point or two. It's not going to be that big of a deal, but make sure to include that component somehow. Then provide 2 specific examples of each of these from specific religions. So that means you define religion, you talk about the 5 components, and let's say one of those that you emphasize is ritual. You should have in your essay an example of ritual includes puja from Hinduism and the Sundance from Lakota religion. 2 specific examples from specific religions. Then you're getting into some why questions. Why would religions have similar components? Why is it that we can say that these components here, these practices and these components that are found across religion, why is religion so important to human life? That's your own. I'm looking for your view on this. Based on, you've been studying this for 16 weeks, why do you think religion is so important to human life? Not just Christianity. I mean, that's going to be slightly different, probably for most of us, as to why Christianity is so important, but why is religion so important? Why is it so difficult for a Christian to study world religions? Give at least 2 reasons. Right? Give 2 reasons why somebody would find it difficult. Why is it important for Christians to study world religions? Give at least 2 reasons. So those would be separate sections. Then choose one religion we discussed this semester. We've discussed a lot. Pick one. Right? Identify at least 3 places where there's commonalities between that religion and Christianity. Describe at least 3 important ways that they are different, not just identify, but describe. Right? So just saying they have a different text, they have a different God, they have. Right? So describe why that's important. That's important that they're different. In detail and with specifics, describe how a Christian could communicate the gospel to that person with the goal of converting them. And so even if you aren't a Christian, you still should be able to talk about, right, well, here are some places that a Christian, several of you have indicated you're not Christian, and you've done well on the reflection essays on this point. So, even though you might not care about that part, I still want you to think about it. Right? Again, don't just say something like, I tell them about Jesus. What about Jesus? To this particular, right? So you're talking to, let's say you take Islam. Right? What about Islam, or what would you say differently to a Muslim about Jesus than you might say to a Hindu? Right? And so both of them, yes, you tell them about Jesus, but you tell them different things. So based on the religion you chose, be specific about what it is you would tell them, or what kind of things you would have to overcome in talking about that. So, specifics. Again, if you just end up writing, I tell them about Jesus, you'll get some partial credit because at least you're addressing that part of the question. But, to get that full credit for that part, you really want to spend some time writing, a sentence or 2, at least, to talk about those kind of things. Questions about the essay?
How many points? Still 30?
The essay is going to be worth more points because this is asking you to do a lot more than what. Yeah. So it is going to be more. I haven't completely decided the total points, but it is going to be more substantial part of the final grade than it has been on previous essays.
Can we bring like an outline or something to the final?
Not that you can use. If you want to bring it to you and then put it away before the exam starts, that's fine. If you run it by me, that's fine. If you want to look at it one more time before the exam, and as soon as you get the paper, write it on your paper, that's fine, but you cannot transfer it directly from the card onto the paper.
Do you know about how many other multiple choice questions they are going to be tested?
Again, I'm not entirely sure yet. It'll probably run somewhere around 40 to 50 multiple choice, and then somewhere around 10 to 20 of the short answer. It might be a little bit more than that, but that's probably around what I'm looking at right now. I'm trying to make some adjustments to figure out the best balance, because some of you do really well on the short answers and then have difficulty with the multiple choice, and so I'm trying to find the best way to try and balance it so everybody can find something that they can do well at. But it probably end up being somewhere around that.
I don't think it would be a bad idea to just make that our test.
Yeah.
I mean, that really sums up.
Yeah.
And if you want to let us have like a gift card or something.
Yeah.
You're rocking.
Just keep everyone 100.
Yeah. Why do we even have grades?
Well, we need grades. 100.
Oh, okay. Any other questions about the essay specifically, or the exam in general? All right, so I have a couple more example questions that take the time to go through. Again, ultimately, I'm thinking of this as your time. Whatever's going to best help you in preparing for the exam. So if there's questions that come up, that you really want to know, or if there's a particular issue or whatever, by all means, stop us and we'll switch gears. But these are, I think I've said this before, but if I haven't, I'll say it now. Many of the multiple choice short answers you will have seen before. There will be some that obviously you have not seen. So there will be questions very similar like this. So a scholar in Judaism who investigates the biblical text and makes application of the text to contemporary life is known as a rabbi. All right. This holiday is connected to the Maccabean revolt, also known as the Festival of Lights. It is observed for 8 days, during which people might give each other gifts. Now, are you guys worried about this exam? You're doing well. No, these are exactly the questions that. There's one or two here that I adjusted. They were a short answer. I made a multiple choice, but these were exactly as they were. Not surprisingly, most of you got these right when you took the exam. Now we'll get a little bit harder. Which of the following would be in accordance with the materialist position towards the origins of religion? All right, we got C. Seeing several nods. I'm still seeing some looks of, and that is one of the terms. So I'm not inventing one. It's one of the things on the study guide. What is the materialist position on religions? Would be a good thing to know. I didn't say that. how do materialists believe religion started? Do they believe that it was invented, that it exists because it functions, or that there's actually something out there?
I think what you said is B. But I don't know which one up there.
That last one was yeah, B reflects that, but that's not the materialist position of religion. Anybody want to go with A, and then we just got to span the gamut?
I'll take A.
All right.
I don't think it's D, because they don't acknowledge there's being divinity necessarily. It's more the idea than anything. I'm going to go C.
C is the correct answer. Why is C the correct answer?
Because there's no sense of
Well,
okay. I mean, it can't be, and it just doesn't make any sense to match what it is, because they're saying it's just passing it down, it's not really describing the concept. And then D is describing divinity, which is then accepting that is a possibility, which materialism acknowledges it, but it doesn't accept it. So, in my mind, that narrows out D. And then B, I just don't think B is it. So,
right, so the materialist position is that human beings invented religion. They created it of their own accord. The only one that fits that is C. Metaphysical truths would still be this idea that there's something out there, larger than nature. Right, so the materialist position is a very natural one. I'll keep an eye on that one. Maybe that one might not show up. But if it does, which of the following is not one of the pillars, the 5 pillars of Islam? Jihad. Jihad is not. All right. So this was one of the questions. I think another one of the questions also asked you to list 3. Probably won't be both of those, but there might be something like so. Knowing the 5 pillars would be a good thing to do. This next question stumped almost all of you because you didn't answer the question according to what I was looking for. On the exam, in bold, were the words, this type of Buddhism. Several of you, most of you, answered Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is not a type of Buddhism. The part that threw you off was the leader of this type of Buddhism. And so you were answering the Dalai Lama, but I wasn't asking you for the leader, I was asking you for the type of religion. So if it shows up, it'll probably show up as a multiple choice question. That way you're not thrown as to what I'm looking for. So which type of Buddhism is this? Yes. Tibetan Buddhism. And so I didn't want to say the Dalai Lama. I didn't want to come out and say the Dalai Lama because then that would be more of a giveaway. That is Tibetan Buddhism. But that part threw you off on the exam when this came up. Which of the following is not one of the 4 noble truths of Buddhism? C. That's pretty quick.
When in doubt, see your way out.
You don't know the answer.
See, that tends to not be the case on my exams.
Or anyone.
And what I do when I make up the exam is not this one, this just comes from an older exam, but when I create the question, I will take the answers that I come up with, write them on my Microsoft Word, and then organize them alphabetically so that they're totally random. And for some reason, C just does not show up that much. So watch out. You're better going B or A if you just don't know. But in this case, it is C. The correct answer is C. Why is this? Why is C the correct answer? It's not one of the 4 noble truths. That's right. So Which of the Four Noble Truths is missing, though?
Give me a minute to try.
Yeah, I'm sure, but you might be able to logically figure it out just from what the other answers are. Which of the Four Noble Truths is the one missing? Right? C is incorrect, right? That's the one that's wrong. Let's do it this way. Which one of these is the first of the Noble Truths? The first one is B. All right, so A and D are later truths. How do you get from B to these next ones?
Desire causes suffering.
Desire causes suffering, right? So the cause of suffering is desire. So that's the one that is missing, right? You remove desire, you remove suffering. The way to remove desire is evil. So, know the Four Noble Truths. Probably wouldn't be a short answer that says list them all, but there might be a question like this, or there might be a question that says, list two of them, right? So, know the Four Noble Truths. Now, we've talked about the Bhagavad Gita already today. So what of the following is one of the lessons? D? Everybody agree with that? All right. Going on to Dharma. Other things that you could use to talk about that, right? We didn't really talk about, what religion is the Bhagavad Gita connected with? Right? Did we talk about the need to perform rituals to the ancestors in Hinduism? No, not really. There is a little bit of that, but we didn't talk about it. Did we talk about nonviolence with Hinduism? No, it was more Jainism, which you don't have to know anything about. And suffering is more of an issue with Buddhism. Right? So again, work through them. If you can't figure it out, try to work through some of these things, because I'm trying to make it where the answers don't overlap that much. As far as like trying to, again, fool you. It's a very difficult subject. I get that. All right, which type of Buddhism is translated the way of the elders, emphasizes monasticism? The person that's important through here is the one that, through their self-effort, achieves nirvana. You sound very, very convinced of that. Anybody want to help them out and definitely say A, or? Okay. If it's A,
It might be B.
if it is A, what about this one? What is different about this?
Once the younger, more hit.
More hit.
So what is in Japan, right? Is it the one that does the one that dominates Japan, and the other one more dominant in India?
Well, yeah. One of them is more dominant in East Asia. But what's different about this one? If this is incorrect, what's different about this one that doesn't make it that? What's emphasized in Mahayana Buddhism?
Yes.
So, Mahayana Buddhism, do they emphasize the importance of the individual, or do they emphasize more universal type of salvation, liberation?
I think it would be universal.
All right. Yeah.
So Mahayana Buddhism believes that the common people can achieve nirvana, and not just monks.
Okay, there you go.
So I would say that the correct answer is Theravada Buddhism, because it is described as the way of the elders, and monasticism is necessary to achieve nirvana.
You'd think that, though, but this is actually a foolish question, or a question meant to fool you. So the answer correctly is, I wasn't. It's still Theravada. Yeah, the answer is Theravada. And just like you won't have a note card, you won't have your laptop in front of you. Well, James might have his laptop in front of him. He's taking it online. So. All right. Here we go. This one's a tough one. This one got you first time through. All right, so this pilgrimage occurs every 12 years. It is a remembrance of the battle between the gods and demons over a battle of immortality-giving elixir. Drops from a pitcher of this drink fell to earth on different rivers. Pilgrims believe that entering these rivers at certain times would bring freedom from karma. B.
I think I put the Ganges on the last test.
All right. If it's not the Ganges, then what's the Ganges?
Ganges is a river.
All right, the Ganges is one of the rivers, right? And so the practice is not the Ganges. Humble, we didn't even talk about. Yeah, I had to look this up. I don't know where I got it from. I said it as an object. I looked it up. I don't know if I was flipping through Quarteron or whatever. So, hey, that looks like a good word. Let's throw that one on that. It's a dish, but it's also a ritual in Hinduism too. Bahubali is the name of an important figure in Jainism, who isn't on the list. So the Kumbh Mela. So that's on the list in Hinduism. It says rituals, practices we emphasized in class. One of them is the Kumbh Mela. All right, so go back to those PowerPoints if you don't have them in your notes. Look those up and make sure you got those down. All right. Which of the following positions is in accordance with the Taoist ideal of Wu Wei? The human condition, and then you can read the answers. So, I guess first you need to go and answer this question, what's Wu Wei? Non-purpose selection. All right, so non-action, non-interference. All right, yeah, so if you know what Wu Wei is, look through those and say, okay, what is it that lines up with this one? Okay, that's correct, B. As I mentioned before, with some practices, we emphasize the purpose of the practice. This is why they do that. Alchemy in Taoism was one of those. So why do Taoists engage in alchemy? What are they hoping to achieve?
Probably immortality.
Immortality. All right. Brahman, you should throw that out immediately because that's Hinduism. All right. So, there will usually be one that you should be able to toss out. Right? Not all the time, but usually there's one that you can toss out immediately. Right? And so the goal is to achieve immortality. All right. Last one. This religion emphasizes a common foundation to all religions. All right. All right. All right, well, let's see what's time. Make sure to take this question off. So it's basically those kinds of things. There will be, like I said before, some short answer or some fill in the blank or something like that. Again, knowing some general ideas about it, knowing the important aspects should put you in a good position. And it might be something where you do have to ask yourself, okay, now what's Wu Wei again? All right, Wu Wei is non-action, non-interference, and so which one of these fits the best with that? Any questions? Anything we need to talk about to help you as you prepare?
Not actually a question, but I will say that I feel that if you truly love us then you are trying to decide how many points to give the essay question. The higher you go, the more love you will show. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
If you really want to teach religion, you've got to like show it. And
Oh, yeah.
gotta give them mercy.
Practice what you preach.
I think in this class, I've bent over backwards with mercy. At some point, the door is locked and I say, I do not know you. Go away from me, you workers of iniquity. With that, don't forget, if I get at least, I think it was, 80%?
Yeah, did everybody do that?
Completing the student evaluation forms, then everyone that completes it will get 15 points on their final grade. Not your percentage. Not percentage. Remember, I add up total points.
It's out of 1,000.
It's out of 1,000 points.
So if I get 700 out of 1,000 points, I will pass this class.
Yeah, well, if you get 600 out of 1,000 points, you'll pass. That'd be D, but it's 700 to C.
I could do that. I could do that.
So 15, bad to help you out. All right. Several of you are pretty close to, needing almost a perfect grade. Yeah. So, so completing that student evaluation is probably a good thing to have. Yeah, I won't see those until after. Yeah, I'm just going to trust you are all giving me good evaluation. Need to have faith. Yeah.
You really love us.
Yeah.
Really true. He loves the Lord.
As a parent, though, I know that sometimes love has to be tough love.
That's not what we can do for you, like what you can do for us.
Sometimes the most important lessons are the hardest to learn.
I'm very excited.
All right. Any legitimate, non-begging,
Oh, I'm not begging. I'm stating. I definitely choose this class over your book of Revelation.
I don't know if that's a ringing endorsement.
This has been a lot more, not necessarily entertaining, although that is a good word. I've definitely gotten more out of it all in my classes. Or so kind of people.
How do you think Daoism relates to Christianity as far as like which one's not which one's true?
I was going to say
like does it link up or are they opposites or what?
No, there's some elements of Taoism that I think could be useful for Christians maybe to consider, but I think as far as some of the main tenets, there is very much an emphasis on the personhood of God. Right? That God's not just kind of an impersonal force that permeates the universe, that God is a person. Right? And I think one of the things as well is that with Taoism, historical events, whether Lao Tzu, for example, is a historical person or not, doesn't really matter, even to the Taoists. But Christianity, it's very important that Jesus was not only the Son of God, but a historical figure, that God works in history. And so I would say some of the main things. But I certainly think that there are some elements of Wu Wei, for example, where we just get so caught up in so many things in life that we would just kind of step back a little bit, and not force ourselves. And that even sometimes church can become very ritualistic, and it gets past what it's naturally supposed to be. Any last questions? All right, well then I'll see you all a week from today. Remember, no class on Thursday. It's Grace Day. See, I'm giving you grace by not requiring it. That was not my choice, but I'm not against it per se.